I didn't learn anything about this in school. In school, we just learned you get your period and here's a tampon on a pad. It was very much like manage your period. Don't let people see it.
Meet Lisa,
menstrual cycle and chronic pain coach.
I work with people who struggle with their menstrual cycle in some ways. Physical pain, psychological symptoms, skin, chronic pain, or a condition called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So when we're on our period, the archetype that we can use to describe that is essentially with those 4 phases, we kind of are like 4 different people every month. We have these different personalities, and some of them we might not like. We kind of live in a world where we have to be on all the time, and when our body is sending us messages to retreat back inwards, there can be tension and resistance, and that's when we get things like PMS and feeling moody.
What made you get into this?
I didn't plan on doing this work at all. I got into it because, and I just said to myself, I just need to figure this out. Understanding this is to bring awareness to what is happening in our nervous system. The more time we spend in regulation, the healthier it is for your well-being.
Before we start the episode, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out to listen to these episodes. If you could take 2 seconds out of your day and hit the subscribe button, the bell, and give us a follow on whatever platform you're listening on so we can keep growing the podcast. Now let's get to the episode. Hey Lisa, how are you?
I'm good, Demi. How are you doing?
Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here.
So what do you do?
So I work as a menstrual cycle coach, helping women and people with menstrual cycles to have a better relationship with their menstrual cycle. And in particular, I help people with chronic pain and suffering around their menstrual cycle. And then I also run an educational school called the Menstrual Coach Academy, where we train professionals to learn more about the menstrual cycle so that they can bring that work to their clients as well.
Yeah, so when you say that, like, that's all I was saying to you earlier on, like, obviously I got lucky. I don't really get much pain or anything like that now. Say, obviously when I was younger, I think I was like 14, my period was so heavy that they just put me on the contraception straight away. Because it was so bad. I went anemic actually, so that's why they were like, right, we have to put you on the pill or whatever. So I've been on something literally like
since then.
Yeah. So obviously I haven't experienced anything really bad.
Great.
Yeah. So I'm like, I was shocked to know that there's actually like menstrual cycle coaching out there.
I know.
Yeah. So like when people come to you, like what are they? I seen you had on your website trauma, pain. Like what if a client came to you, what would they be saying to you? Like,
yeah. So the clients that I work with are people who struggle with their menstrual cycle in some way. So that could be physical pain, or it could be other symptoms, psychological symptoms. It could be mood symptoms. It could be skin. For me, most of the people who come to me have chronic pain or a condition called PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So that's a little bit like PMS, but very extreme PMS, where their mental health is really at risk in the week before their period. And very often the people who come to me are people who have already been around the block. They might have already gone to the doctor and not really gotten the help they needed, or they might have tried various different diets, or maybe they've done a bit of therapy, and they're still figuring out why they continue to have pain. And so when I work with them, I work with the mind-body connection. So I help people with working with their nervous system, helping them understand their hormones. And very often people who have, and this is my own personal story as well, Demi, people who have pain with their periods really hate their menstrual cycle. They don't like their period. They don't have a good relationship with their menstrual cycle. So a lot of the work then becomes about learning to firstly understand their menstrual cycle, like what's happening on a hormonal level, and then also come into a better relationship with their menstrual cycle so that they're not in this stress response in their body all the time. And another thing I see as well is people who have pain or sort of emotional distress associated with their menstrual cycle, they can really worry a lot and get a lot of anxiety before pain is even there. So it's a lot of working with the nervous system, working with fear, working with emotions, working with our history a lot of people have a really bad experience of their first period. You know, people weren't supported. And then, yeah, trauma is a big part of it too, because if someone has a lot of trauma in their body, it can stay stuck in their body, and then that can have an impact on their well-being as well. So I work on that level too.
What type of trauma would it be?
It could be anything really. It could be developmental trauma. It could be neglect as a young person. It could be sexual trauma. That's very common when it comes to women's health and pelvic pain. It could be, or just even like, it doesn't even have to be something, it doesn't even have to be big T trauma. So that's like a big trauma. It could be small little traumas. Like it could be bad relationships or breakups or bereavement, the loss of somebody important in their life that they haven't fully grieved. And those emotional distresses that we all go through in life, for some people, that can really leave an imprint on their physicality and their nervous system. And it can, you know, all those experiences can then build up and then create like a lot of tension in the body. And yeah, for some people that can really lead to chronic pain.
So from all of that, that could be like a big effect on your period, like with pain and stuff like that.
It can be, yeah. Yeah, like for people who... you know, say if you get your period and you don't feel supported in school and you feel embarrassed about your period and you feel ashamed, or you start getting period pain as a young girl, or, you know, if you've very heavy periods and you don't know how to manage that well, and you're not getting the right support at home, or you're not getting the right support in school, or even in school, like if you think about teenage girls, there's a lot of pressure as well, like outside of menstruation. There's you know, sports and academics and having to look a certain way and peer pressure. And there can be a lot of stress in life in general. There might be things happening at home, and that can lead to, yeah, that can lead to pain for some people. So, you know, the way that the body works for people who have menstrual cycles is that when hormones are going up and down every month with the ebb and flow of estrogen and progesterone, and in the premenstrual phase, so the week before our period, for some people, the drop in estrogen, which is one of the main hormones of the menstrual cycle, that can then leave our nervous system quite exposed. And if people have trauma, or if they have a lot of emotional distress that they haven't worked through from the past, it's as though it can come to the surface, and then it can manifest as emotional difficulties, physical pain, that kind of thing. Yeah,
that's mad. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So how do you get to working on that? Like, how do you work on it? Like,
yeah. So the way I work with clients is I start with education. So well, first I do a consult. I do a consultation with people and really get to know who they are, what they're going through, what their challenges have been, what they've tried, what works, what doesn't work. And we start to talk about the menstrual cycle. So I teach them about their hormones, estrogen, progesterone. I teach them something called the inner seasons. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before. I can talk about that in a minute. I teach them about the seasons of their menstrual cycle and get them to track their menstrual cycle. So they start tracking their cycle, and they start to get curious about who they are every day of the month in their menstrual cycle. And then they might start noticing from the tracking that, oh yeah, I start to feel like PMSy, or I start to feel vulnerable on day 21, for example, you know, a few days after ovulation. And that knowledge starts to then become part of their life. They start to realize, oh, like a few days before day 21, they might then say, oh, like my premenstrual phase is coming up in a couple of days, and I need to just take care of myself a bit better. I need to maybe plan my meals, or take things off the diary and live a little bit more in sync with the cycle. So we get them to come into relationship with their cycle first. And then the second step in my work is I teach people about their nervous system. So that's the fight, flight response, the freeze response, and then the ventral vagal, which is called the rest and digest. I'm sure you've heard of that before.
No, I actually
so rest and digest is, so in our nerve, all of us have a nervous system. Every living being has a nervous system. And when you are with your friends having a coffee or going for lunch and you feel good and you feel comfortable and you feel safe and you feel like present and connected, that's your rest and digest. That's when your body is relaxed and you feel connected to other people. You might feel connected to yourself. You might feel connected to the world around you. You're not on edge, you're not nervous. Whereas if you are in a situation where, you could be driving a car and you have to suddenly swerve, because someone got in your way, that's the fight-flight response. So that would be a very healthy kind of stress response. And the purpose of that is to keep you safe, right? Your adrenaline is moving through your body to swerve the car so that you can survive on the road. And then it comes down, that the adrenaline and the cortisol come down because you're safe again, you're fine. Whereas for people who have a lot of stress in their lives, or a lot of worry, or difficult circumstances, or they have difficulties from the past that they haven't really worked through, then those stress hormones can be running through their veins every single day. And so they can be living in this kind of fight flight energy all the time. And that's a very draining place to be in our bodies. So the purpose of understanding this is to bring awareness to what is happening in our nervous system so that we can do something about it, so that we can heal a little bit of that and come into a bit more rest and digest, a bit more relaxation. Because the more time we spend in regulation, the healthier it is for your well-being. And through something called the pain science lens, when we are constantly in this fight or flight response, our body is more likely to create pain signals because it's chemistry in the brain that will cause that. So a lot of the work I do with people is educating them about their cycle, educating them about their nervous system, and then just having very gentle conversations about how they can find ways to do inner healing work, really. And that will look very different for everyone. For some people, that might be like talking about their first period or school, or, things they struggle with. For some people, it could be they might have perfectionistic sort of personalities and they want everything to be perfect. And so we work on that, Or it could be finding ways to bring in more relaxation, mindfulness, things like that. So it'll really depend from client to client, like how we work. But we always start with education, and then we move into how to apply that then to their life.
Yeah, so to be more in that relaxed state, that would be like meditation and stuff like that.
Yeah, not even meditation is great. I love meditation, but even just like feeling safe in your body and feeling like at ease in yourself when you're just out and about, and when you're, I don't know, doing your work or in your relationships, or just in general, like it doesn't always have to be sitting on a meditation cushion, but it's kind of this like way of being in yourself where you feel, you feel okay, you just feel like you can deal with issues. Like life will always have problems. Humans always will go through difficulties, but it's the rest and digest response is this state of being, of like knowing that you have options, knowing you have help around you. You might have supportive family, supportive friends, therapy, I don't know, a coach, like your podcast is a great resource for people to listen to who are going through a difficult day, for example, like nice things in your life, and feeling like, like it's never going to be, like you're going to be okay, that feeling of safety in yourself. Yeah. And for people who have chronic pain, a lot of the time they have like a lot of fear of pain and worry of pain. And then, and what I see in my work is a lot of people have a lot of emotional distress about stuff in their life, challenges that they've been through, or ways they move through the world, putting a lot of pressure on themselves as well, as another thing I see. And so when when we do the work, it's like an inside job, you know, it's an inside job to find a bit more connection to yourself. And as a woman, you know, like feeling somewhat connected to your menstrual cycle too. And it's not, because like we live in a society where there can be a lot of shame associated with it, not for everyone, but for some people, or it's just this thing that's like, we don't talk about, you know, it's like, oh, it's a women's problem and that's it. But actually the menstrual cycle, like I said, because of the ebb and flow of hormones, we can learn to live a little bit more in sync with that cycle.
Yeah. And so obviously you were saying that you'd recommend your clients to track their cycle. So should everyone track their cycle, or if they're only having pain or certain issues? Like,
yeah, I don't think it's like, if you want to track your cycle, I think it's a good thing to do. I came to that work because I, as a teenager, had really bad period pain and went to the doctor, went to another doctor, was put on this pill, was put on that pill, tried this diet, tried that diet, and none of it really, you know, really worked. And then I discovered this practice called menstrual cycle awareness, which I then trained in and learned about. And a big element of that was, tracking your cycle. Because I was just living from day to day, and then my period would come. You know, I didn't really plan on it. And this was like over 10 years ago. So we didn't have menstrual cycle tracking apps or anything like that. And the only way I knew my period was coming was because I would always get emotional. You know, the night before my period, I'd be crying. But then I started to kind of plan a little bit when my period was coming. And then I could put that in my diary, and then I could be kinder to myself, you know, in the week before my cycle. Plan some meals, you know, plan my social life a little bit so that I wasn't really, really busy when my period was coming. And that was really helpful because it meant I could live a bit more in sync. And what I mean by that, Demi, is the menstrual cycle, like I said, has these hormones going up and down. But essentially there's 4 phases in the cycle. So when we're on our period, that's like the hormones are at their lowest. And the sort of archetype that we can use to describe that from one of the trainings that I've done is the winter. So when you're on your period, it's like your hormones are at their lowest. Therefore, your energy is most likely to be at its lowest too. And so it's like that's your winter phase. And if you think about the seasons in the year in Ireland, like the winter is dark, it's cold, you know, nature itself goes underground in order to replenish itself, and in order to, you know, sort of like the leaves get shed from the trees in order for new life to come in the spring. And it's the same thing with the cycle. The menstrual cycle is this like self-replenishing cycle of life and death. It allows for fertility and life and birth. And therefore in our body, when we're on our period, not for everyone, but it can be a time for rest and a time for ease and gentleness and self-care. And then as we come out of our inner winter, estrogen picks up a little bit. So that's one of the main hormones. And we come into the spring phase of our menstrual cycle. And the spring, like spring in Ireland, you know, it's not fully summer, but there is life, there's more light, there's more nature, there's more, you know, the sprouts are coming up from the soil. And the same with the menstrual cycle. It's like that energy is starting to pick up. And then we have summer, and that's the ovulation phase of the cycle. That's when estrogen is at its highest. And the summer is the time for fertility, and that's the high energy time. And then after summer, as we all know, we come into autumn, and that's when the estrogen starts to drop. And then we have this second hormone called progesterone coming in, and our energy will start to come down. And that can be tough because we kind of live in a world where we have to be on all the time. And when our body is sending us messages to come back home to ourselves and to retreat back inwards, there can be tension and resistance. And that's when we get things like PMS and feeling moody and you know.
So after, obviously, so that would be after the time where you're the summertime.
Yeah.
Then you start to get all like that then.
Yeah. So the premenstrual phase, the inner autumn, usually happens maybe a week or so after.
Right before your period.
Yeah, it's a week before your period. It's about a week. And it'll, again, tracking your cycle isn't about me saying to you, day 4 is spring, day 21 is autumn. you'll have to
It's a
decide
good
yourself.
explanation of it. Like, do you know, I actually never heard of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good like framework to understand it, you know, because I didn't learn anything about this in school. In school, we just learned you get your period and here's a tampon on a pad, and they kind of showed us how to use it. And that was like literally it. There was no education or anything. There was nothing. Maybe a little bit of, you know, science and biology and the Leaving Cert. I can't really remember, but it was very little. It was very much like manage your period. Don't let people see it. Don't swim unless you have a tampon, you know, like those were the messages. It wasn't like, oh, you have this like ebb and flow, this cyclical ebb and flow every month, and your energy will also be in alignment with that. And when you're in your autumn or premenstrual phase, you know, you might not feel great because it's time to start like self-caring a little bit more, you know. So the menstrual cycle is linked to our physical health, our mental health, our emotional well-being, our energy. And it's a really, really helpful tool to tune into, to get to know ourselves through our menstrual cycle. Because essentially with those 4 phases, we kind of are like 4 different people every month. You know, we have these different personalities almost. And some of them we might not like very much. Yeah.
So going back then before, what made you get into this? Like,
yeah, it's a really good question, Demi. I didn't plan on doing this work at all. It wasn't my plan. But I got into it because, like I said, I struggled a lot with my cycle when I was younger, since I was a teenager, to the point where my mum had to collect me from school. I was fainting. I had a lot of fear about my period, you know, and I was quite an athletic kid as well. I was doing a lot of sports, and that really interfered with that. And I didn't really have the right support, you know, like the only person who really knew what was going on for me, well, the only people were my mum, my sister, and my doctor. Even like, I don't really think my brothers or my dad really got it, you know. And I remember like going on holidays and feeling really nervous about having pain and that kind of thing. So it was always a really big part of my life, this pain. And then like I said, I went on the pill, but then I was getting a lot of different side effects and stuff. So when I was in college, then in my early 20s, I decided, I just kind of had enough, you know. I was really fed up, and I just said to myself, I just need to figure this out. So I came off the pill and went to the doctor and started asking more questions, you know, and I started getting curious about potentially having a condition called endometriosis. So that's like a women's health condition that causes a lot of pain. And long story short, I then discovered various different trainings. So I trained I was working in the corporate world. I was actually working in tech, but I was having this personal journey kind of in the background. And on the weekends, I was training to become a Pilates instructor because I was really interested in physiology and the body, and something called the psoas muscle. And I started to become really interested in the nervous system. And then I started to become really interested in diet and nutrition. And I was reading all these books about like hormones and diet. And then I took this course in menstruality, menstrual cycle awareness. And then I took another course, and I just started to like, this was kind of like my hobby, you know, in the background / trying to fix my own body. And as I was then journeying this work for myself, I was in therapy as well. A couple of my friends then wanted me to help them with their periods or their cycle. One friend was trying to get pregnant, and she wanted to kind of understand her cycle a bit better. And then I began doing workshops for women in Dublin, like just on the side, and they were quite popular. And then I met my my supervisor. So she helps me with my coaching, my client work. And yeah, and it kind of just grew from there. It was a very, very slow journey over like 10 years. Started working with clients one-to-one and doing online courses, and then COVID hit, and then I was working with people online abroad. And then people started to ask me, I had some friends who were like yoga teachers and clients who were like wellness professionals, and they wanted to learn more about the cycle so that they could teach their clients this work too. And that's when I launched the menstrual cycle professional training. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that now. So it's just been a very like organic, slow growing, evolving journey that then turned into a business. And yeah, so it just kind of grew from there. Yeah. If that answered your question.
Do you still do like Pilates?
No, I don't.
Just mostly focus on that.
Yeah, like now that I like look back on my journey, I can see how all those trainings kind of informed.
Yeah, brought you to this point. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I still love going to yoga classes as a student. Like I love that. But I don't teach it because it's just be too much for me to do, you know. So I primarily focus on my client work and then my professional, my students in my academy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad the way, like, if a girl, and I know it's not even just me, my friends would have been the same. If there's anything wrong with you, they just put you on the pill. It's crazy, like, and I think I was 14. My mom was like, what? As soon as, just because I had a heavy period, it was like, do you ever think of contraception? And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
And then obviously there was no other, like, they don't look at anything else, what it could be, or what other ways you can actually deal with it. So yeah, it's mad. And now I'm like, I'm off it now. I'm only off it now the last 2 weeks because me head has just been so bad that I'm like, and I feel like I don't know any different.
Yeah.
So I'm like thinking maybe it's that, because I will have like times where I'm like really bad and then I'm like fine, and then I'm like thinking maybe that's just me because I don't know any different. I'm on literally something since I'm, what, as I said, 14. What's that? I'm 27 now soon. So I'm like, how many years is that? 14 years. Yeah. So I'm like, that's crazy. I'm probably not even fertile anymore.
No, I'm sure you are.
Being on something for so long.
It's really common. Yeah.
And that's because I have MS, the medication that I was on, I was told at the start that I can't get pregnant if I'm on that.
Oh, okay.
So like, they're like, you have to stay on it. There's no choice.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, right, okay. But I just came off. I was like, I actually don't even care.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to try, see what I'm like.
Yeah.
But obviously I think I was getting the injection, so I think that's, it takes like 3 months to actually come out your system.
For it to come out. Okay. Yeah.
That's what I'm like, because all my friends and all, like, I'd be like saying to them, like, loads of them are not on it, because they're like to me, my head is fucked from it. Like, they're like, I go splats, like insane if I'm on something. Is that why? What made you not stick to the pill then?
I was just getting loads of side effects. Like, for me, they weren't psychological. I was getting like breakthrough bleeding, so just a lot of like spotting and stuff. That was the first one.
Right. Oh, so like not even like for a week, it was like throughout the whole month.
Yeah. And then I changed pill, and then I was put on another one, and then my skin got really bad. I got really bad acne, like cystic acne, and then I was put on another one, and then my skin got really dry, and then another one again, and then it was like my skin was acting up a lot, and I just kind of like, back then I was kind of thinking, this can't be right, you know, like my body can't be having all of these symptoms, because like there has to be some other reason why my period pain is so bad, you know, like, so I just, like, I wouldn't recommend it for people to like come off the pill and try and figure it out. You know, I certainly don't prescribe that. But like for me, I just really had enough. And like you said, like, we do live in a culture where there isn't really a lot of research around the menstrual cycle now. That's changing now. But back then, and even today, like, we don't have a lot of like data or understanding why like menstrual pain happens and like how we can work with it. And there'd be like loads of different reasons why it happens, or like you said, heavy periods as well is another thing. A lot of people really struggle with that, you know, so, or their mental health. There's just a whole array of like symptoms and reasons for it, but the actual like options in the medical world are very limited. Like the pill, in my opinion, like it can be really good for people who are really struggling and who it helps them. I'm not against the pill, but I just don't think it's enough in terms of the medical world, you know?
Yeah. I feel like, when I went in, there was no talks about anything else. Now that was, as I said, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
There was no talks about anything else. It was straight away. It was like the option is the pill.
Yeah.
There was no other options.
Same.
It's, it's mad.
Yeah.
But so you were saying that like you don't find it as bad now when you're not using the pill or like that's how did you learn to?
So for me, it like everyone's story will be really different, and everyone's like thing that works for them will be really different. So I really want to like disclaimer here, you know, like what works for me might not work for you. I actually had 2 surgeries, Demi. So like, to go into the long story a little bit, I had a surgery in Ireland where I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And then I had a surgery in London because I discovered that the surgery in Ireland wasn't enough. The way that they treated me wasn't really like, I didn't really get the most skilled surgeon, if you will, in terms of endometriosis. So I made the decision to travel abroad to have surgery in London. So I did that, and I'd also changed my diet a little bit, and I was like living, tracking my cycle. And then after all of that, I did get like a lot less pain after my surgery because they cleared out some endometriosis. But the thing that helped me the most in my journey has been learning to process my emotions.
And how, when you say that now, I'm like, how did you learn to process your emotions then?
You see, okay, I discovered the work of the mind-body connection. Okay, so, and then as I was discovering this, I realized about myself that I'm very analytical. Like I can be really in my head, and I can think a lot, and I can explain to you why I'm having an emotion, or I can explain to you why my partner is annoying me, or, I can tell you stuff. I'd be very analytical. And I wasn't very good at just feeling my feelings. I'd have to kind of like understand them. So that, like, I got to this stage in my journey where I realized, I need to get better at feeling my feelings. So that was all through this work called the mind-body connection. And again, I didn't know this was going to help me. I was just trying a lot of things, and then I discovered in the mind-body connection work, there is journaling practices that they teach you that I started to do. And you journal on stuff in your life that's difficult, And I then discovered that, there were lots of things in my life that weren't good, that I hadn't really fully processed and sort of done. You can do inner child work. You might have come across that with some of your guests before, where you might revisit times in your past and then do some inner child work or self-compassion work. And so when I started to do that real deep emotional work, and even just like anger, like women are socialized to not be angry, and if we are angry, we get backlash for that. So that's another thing. Like, how do we come into relationship with our anger in a healthy way?
Go to one of them places, see the thing that
smashing stuff.
Yeah, that one. The girls will be sending that in. We need to go.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but I might try it. But yeah, the journaling was really helpful. And just, understanding there were certain things that happened in my childhood, things, that, like, not major stuff, but things I hadn't really kind of integrated and pieced back together for myself. And that I also, because I had so much pain from the age of about 16, my brain was wired to expect pain every time my period was due. So I had to do something called rewiring my neural pathways to unlearn pain. So I had to do a lot of self-talk in the days before my period was due to kind of really calm my fear.
Say that and what would you be saying basically? Like,
I would be saying to myself, I would be sitting in my kitchen and I would be taking a quiet moment with a cup of tea and noticing that I have fearful thoughts about tomorrow, right? About pain. And I would have to say to myself, Lisa, you have fearful thoughts, but right now you do not have pain. Can you be present in this kitchen with your tea and allow your body to be with the experience of not having pain? And I know that sounds really simple, but for me, that was like radical, because I was so used to just expecting pain because it always happened. But when I started to really learn to work with the fear of pain and the dread of pain and the worry about pain, then I started to sort of build a different identity. I started to think, maybe I don't have a problem. Maybe I'm not. Maybe my womb isn't broken.
Yeah.
Radical, So then when you start to work on fear, then that allows you to then actually enjoy your day. maybe leave the house, maybe make some plans, do some stuff. That's how bad chronic pain can be. It can really limit people in terms of where they go and what they do and how they think in their head.
Give you any anxiety, like a couple of days as you're leading up to it, probably getting worse and worse.
And it's not even there. It's just projecting, because of bad experiences. Obviously, I've had a lot of I remember being in London. I was actually I was very fortunate to go to the London Olympics. I think it was in 2012 or something with my dad. Just me and my dad. We went over and we were watching a handball game, and I got my period while we were sitting in the audience, and I had to run to the bathroom, and I had really bad pain. Nearly fainted in the toilet. So I just have loads of memories of being in toilets and in school and stuff where I had pain. And so, it's one of my fears to be somewhere that is not my home and to be in pain, So I really had to work on that. And when I started working on that and started processing emotions, as well as, like I said, living in sync, understanding the seasons and not being burnt out every month. And then I made some tweaks, not major tweaks, but some tweaks in my diet. Then personally, I now have very little pain because of all that, but I still have to do the brain work,
You still probably get a bit anxious. Thinking, what if this time is the same again?
All the time. Last month, I think it was actually day 1 of my cycle. So day 1 is the first day, which is for me is a light day. And Richard, my partner, and we'd booked dinner. We were going on a date, and I was we were just about to leave the house, and I suddenly was hit with anxiety. I was I'm not sure if I can leave, because I was on my period. I was I don't know if I can go into town. It's an hour away on the bus. Can I, am I gonna be in pain when I'm in the restaurant? And I was kind of freaking out, and Richard looked at me and he was what do you need? And I was I just need you to help me make a decision, because I felt I had to figure this out. And then he looked at me and he said, Lisa, I think we should go. You're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. I think we should go. If something happens, we'll get a taxi. It's going to be fine. And in that moment, he took the decision making from me. And I felt my whole nervous system relaxed, and I was okay, I'm allowed to have a bit of fear, but it doesn't have to get into this huge, big, overwhelm spiral,
And so obviously when you had a really bad period and you had so much pain, how many years ago was that now when you're still getting this anxiety?
The last bad pain I had was a couple of years ago. It's been a few years. Yeah. So, it can take time. I think every month is another layer of the onion to work through, another layer. And it doesn't mean that, the thing about it is, it doesn't mean that I'll never have pain. It's just, it's mindfulness, can I be with not having pain today? Because I don't have pain today. And if I have, my therapist said to me at one point, she's if you have pain tomorrow, you can trust yourself, Lisa. You have the tools and the resources to look after yourself if you get pain, So it's about trust and not controlling the outcome and being present with, the now in your body. That's really hard. When you have anything pain or mental health difficulties, it's hard to be with, oh, there is no problem today. Can I be with that? Because your brain is constantly looking for problems.
Yeah, and it's mad. I've had so many people on the podcast now, and so many people that I speak to. It all comes down to doing with anything, even your period, as you said there, to do with your inner child.
Yeah,
it's and I was only saying the other day to me fella, I was like, I actually want to do that. I feel it all comes down to how you're going to be with your kids, how your period is, how you're going to be in relationships, what your all your relationships going to be, not just your. So I'm just kind of do you go to a specific, when you went and done the inner child work, did you go to a specific person for periods, for your inner child work, or did you go to a specific one which was just done inner child work for everything?
So my personal journey, I've had loads of different teachers, and whether that be podcast where you've got a great guest like your podcast, or a book, or a therapist. I've had several different therapists, and because I trained in lots of things, I trained in trauma therapy as well, so I had to work through that myself, that stuff. And then there's there's a bunch of podcasts that I listen to that, every now and then they'll talk about chronic pain and inner child work. So really for me, it's you become your own healer, you become your, you decide yourself. So I was doing the journaling. I was deciding what I was going to journal on, and I was I'm going to journal And I was doing 10 minutes of journaling. And then one of the practices that I learned was it was 20 minutes of journaling about something, whatever, in your past. And then you put on a timer, 20 minutes. And then after the 20 minutes, you do a meditation, like a self-compassion meditation or something nice. And sometimes what happened to me in my journaling practice was this voice would come in, this other, like, I would be journaling about something not nice, but then this like it was almost like a fairy godmother voice would just come in. And I was then having a conversation with, it was like adult Lisa was having a conversation with like the 12-year-old I was 11 when I got my first period. And I was really, that story was, I was on holidays with my brothers in France. I was, young kid, wasn't expecting my period. And then all of a sudden I got my period and I couldn't swim with my brothers in the campsite, So I felt like, oh, I'm missing out and this isn't great, So, and I wasn't really prepared for it. And there was like a grief and I was scared. So there was a lot of emotions attached to my first period story. So I went back to that time and I journaled about it. And then I had to kind of, I had to, like, adult Lisa now had to reparent that young girl who felt scared. So I just spoke to her in my writing.
So when you were journaling, as if it was, you were talking to yourself,
myself, yeah.
When you were younger?
Yeah. And anyone can do that, which is really cool. So you can, like, if you sit down to journal about something in your past, you can, because there's parts of us, you can journal, you can, like, have her write, you can have the young girl write the thing, and then you can have, like, adult Demi or adult Lisa speak to her, like if she had, like, if you were to speak to your nieces or your nephews or children you have, like, you'd speak to them with kindness, so it's the same thing. You would speak to your inner child with kindness. And for some people that might be in a journal practice. Some people it might be dance. It could be music. It could be, you go on a day out with your inner child in your mind, it could really be anything. But it has to feel like authentic for you. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's what I was thinking when people say inner child work, they're actually going somewhere to do the work.
Yeah, you can do that too. You can go to therapists who actually give you exercises and do things with you. But, like, you don't have to. You can also, like, we are creative people. We are healers. You can be like, oh, like, I think my inner child from that story or that age needs a little bit of TLC, and what can I do to help her? And for me, that was journaling and then sitting quietly in my room and just doing a little 10-minute meditation and feeling some feelings from the past that I hadn't felt before, and reassuring her, and then saying to her, like, look, it's going to be okay. And now I'm going to get on with my day.
Yeah. And so now, like, say, how do you incorporate all of this in your life, and obviously with your business? Like, I know you obviously you gave us a lot of information already, like, sitting with your cup of tea and a couple of days before.
Yeah.
But, like, obviously through your whole cycle, like, what way?
Yeah. So when I first started this work, I was doing everything, right? I was doing the tracking. I was writing everything down, how I felt, my appetite, my skin, because it all changed, like, every day of your cycle, which now that you're transitioning off the contraception, you'll notice, the different phases of the cycle. Yeah. So I was really paying attention to all these changes. And then I noticed, like, oh yeah, like, I know I'm coming into the inner autumn of my cycle, because I could be in the supermarket and people get in my way, and normally that wouldn't annoy me, but this day it was annoying me, I'm like, okay, now I'm irritable, so I'm in the autumn. So I was getting to know those 4 phases. And I also went through a period where I had a really restrictive diet. I was, like, not eating gluten, not eating dairy. I was trying veganism, really, really restrictive. And I was, doing loads of therapy, and I was doing like abdominal massage and, like, acupuncture, loads of stuff, to the point where I was like, this is too much, Lisa. Your self-care regime is stressful. It's not helpful, but it was all coming from a place of fear. So then I realized that, and then I was like, oh, I need to not do that. I need to just pick 1 or 2 things. So now I don't really rigidly track my cycle. I have it, like, I put it into my app so that I know, like, day 1 I'll put in my app, and then I'll know.
What app is this? Sorry.
Oh, I use Clue.
Clue.
Yeah, so it's called Clue, CLUE. And you can also use a smartwatch as well. I know they have, like, things on your smart where you can put your period in. My partner has it as well, like, as in he has my cycle. To know. Yeah.
All right, she's cranky.
Yeah.
All right, she's on that
He's
day.
like, oh, she's in that week, because there'll be a day where I kind of lose it a bit, like it happens to us, so so he won't freak out as much. He'll be like, oh, Lisa, what do you need, instead of like reacting.
That's nice.
It's really nice. Yeah.
So that's gas. He's keeping track of your period.
Yeah.
That's gas.
Yeah. It's the work I do, so it's the least he could do.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does that, and there's just more understanding, there's more compassion, there's more understanding. So yeah, I track. I also have to, for me personally, my personal work is working on fear. So like I said, I had that really strict diet. So that turned into a problem, so I developed a lot of fear around food, not because of weight.
You probably got obsessive with.
Yeah. And it's kind of similar to the way an eating disorder might develop in relation to your appearance. For me, it was like fear of pain, right? So, so that wasn't very, very healthy, because I had a lot of fear, and it was like I couldn't eat anything and I couldn't go anywhere. It was really stressed. My mum was like, Lisa, what can you eat at Christmas dinner? Like, it wasn't nice, so I eat mostly everything now. And so it's just like, for me, it's working on fear, and like the journaling practice I was telling you about. I won't do that every day, but I did go through maybe a month where I was doing that every day. But if something comes up in my life, I might sit down and be like, oh, I gotta just do this journaling. It's like cleaning. Like, you gotta just clean the kitchen once in a while. It's the same. It's like tending to your internal world, Yeah.
Yeah, that's mad. I used to do that every morning. Now I haven't done it in a while.
Maybe you don't need it every morning. Maybe it's just like whenever you feel like you might need it.
Yeah, but it was more for like a success kind of point. But it'd be good to like do your own kind of work on myself kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be nice. I need to get back into it.
Yeah. It's not easy to do. It's so like my default is just to get up and get on with my day. But I just know if I center myself somewhat, whether that be 10-minute meditation or just sitting in quiet or reading or doing a little journaling in the morning, the day is a bit better, the day is a bit better. And if I'm working with clients, it's important for me to be like
present.
Yeah. Present. Yeah.
So you have a podcast as well.
Yeah. It's on a break at the moment, but it's called From Pain to Power.
Yeah. And when you have you got a date of when you've been releasing more episodes?
I don't know. Yourself being in business, because I'm building out this academy, it's quite busy. But I've loads of episodes people can go back and listen. But I imagine I'll probably return to that podcast maybe after the summer, I'd say. Yeah, once I get, because I'm currently building a new website and a bunch of things are happening with the academy. So yeah, I just had to kind of like, that's another thing, a whole other conversation. But yeah, running a business and not getting too burnt out is, you have to kind of like let some stuff, you have to park some stuff sometimes,
Yeah, I have a thing of jumping into about 100 different things and I'm just been like, I'll work out. And then I stress myself so much that I'm just kind of like, how did I think that was going to work out? I just think like, I'll get it done. I'll manage it like. But yeah, as you said, the burnout.
Yeah.
I feel like when you take so much on and then it's things that you should be excited for, it's like, I can't wait for this to be over. And you're like, I shouldn't be thinking like that.
I know. That's what happened to me with podcasts, because I was doing my podcast every week and it got to a point where I was like, kind of just, I didn't have the zest so much anymore, and I was like, maybe I don't need to do this. Maybe I can take a break. And I did feel a bit like, I don't think I felt shame, but I felt like kind of a little guilty, because I was doing it every week and people were liking it. But at the same time, there's plenty of content there and there's other things I want to be doing, and I'm working with professionals now. So it's, I just had to hit pause with that, because I like had to figure out how to manage my time and my energy and my attention. But it's fun to do a podcast. Yeah.
I do have days where I'm like, you meet so many people and you learn so much. And like that's, I learned a lot today from ourselves. So it is, I'd be buzzed after.
Absolutely. Oh no, it's so good. It's so, I had the same thing, Demi. Like I loved meeting people and just, you feel like you've got like, you're meeting people through your work, which is really nice. Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on, Lisa.
Thanks for having me, Demi. Yeah.
was lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, you too.
So if anyone is looking to reach out, where can they find you or where can they listen to your podcast?
My podcast is called From Pain to Power, and I'm on Instagram, Lisa de Jong, or the Menstrual Coach Academy if you're interested in training. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you're looking to reach out, make sure you follow us on Unlock Potential Podcast on Instagram and Demi's Nails and Beauty. See you next time.